trials are too important to be left up to juries.
The defense has retained Rank and Fitch as their lead jury consultants.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's find 11 more jurors just like her. Who's next?
Nicholas Easter.
Mr. Easter, that's the second time you've looked at your watch. Are we keeping you from something?
I think if you knew my situation, you might...
Situation?
We accept this juror. Go ahead and take it.
No objections, Your Honor.
Enter Mr. Nicholas Easter as a juror.
This week, we celebrate the late Gene Hackman, discussing when he co-starred with John Cusack and Dustin Hoffman in 2003's Runaway Jury. This is Boy Party. Hello and welcome to Boy Party, the podcast about movies where two or more major stars share the screen and battle it out for screen time and top billing. My name is Lucien Wall-Daly, and I'm joined by the consultant that I've hired to rent a room full of giant screens and spy on the jurors in my trial to make sure that I always win. It's Shane Kelly.
This is ironic because you would get quite mad at me if I brought in a lot of screens into our house. You'd be like, put those away.
Yeah, they're distracting from the TV. Get them out of here.
Get them out.
We could convert our house into a cool room of screens, though, and just do a lot of like Born Identity, Runaway Jury, Mission Impossible type antics.
We get a Bloomberg terminal.
Yeah. We could, you know what we do? We borrow the CCTV cameras that monitor the multi-story car park beside our house.
Yeah.
From over there in the management office, and we set them up in our living room, and we just take turns monitoring the...
In my head, the guy in security over there kind of has a similar setup to that. How many screens does he have?
I'd say they have like 15 screens.
Oh, they have
12 maybe, yeah. They have lots of screens.
Oh, they do,
So
yeah.
he could set up his Gene Hackman jury consultant operation here. Now tell me this from your knowledge of the world. If I go on google.com right now, are there people doing this job that I can hire? Gene Hackman's job in this film.
Yeah, it's Mr. Bull.
Mr. Bull?
Mr. Bull from the show Bull.
Is that what the show Bull is about?
Yeah.
He's like a jury fucker guy.
He sits with the lawyer and they look around to him and he goes, yeah, come on.
And they built a whole show about that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Interesting.
I don't know how many seasons of Bull are there.
Well, the actor got cancelled, so not very. The show subsequently also did.
Right.
Michael something. Welcome to our Runaway Jury episode, folks. My name is Lucy and I'm joined by Shane. We are discussing the great late Gene Hackman, who passed away last week at the age of 95 under somewhat tragic circumstances that are still unfolding. One of the greats and an actor we haven't yet discussed in this podcast. Even though the sort of final decade or so of his career was absolute boy party bonanza, the man basically exclusively made movies where he was co-starring opposite a younger name of equal weight. You've got Runaway Jury with Cusack, and you've got Behind Enemy Lines with Owen Wilson.
Yep.
You've got Enemy of the State with Will Smith. You got Under Suspicion with Morgan Freeman, and yeah, that's contemporary of his. You've got The Birdcage, Robin Williams, and you've got Get Shorty with John Travolta. You got Crimson Tide with Denzel. You got The Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone, Russell Crowe, Leo DiCaprio. So he was really like, I guess, out of a mix of laziness and also the kind of type of star persona he had, sharing a lot of lead actor duties with slightly younger stars in the later part of his career. And lending his prestige to these vehicles that were attempting to bolster younger movie star careers. And Runaway Jury is definitely one of those, although in this one he's pretty explicitly the bad guy, and oh, what a meal he makes of that role. But he has never come up on this podcast before. He died last week, and I said, all right, what are we doing? We're doing a Hackman. This looks like a great movie to discuss.
Yes.
And Cusack and Hoffman were also on a list of people we haven't talked about yet. So here we are talking about Runaway Jury, based on the John Grisham novel, The Runaway Jury. John Grisham is so over-adapted in the 90s that they just stopped and completely stopped.
Yeah.
Between 1993 and 2004, the following John Grisham novels were adapted for film. 93, The Firm, The Pelican Brief. The Firm, also starring Gene Hackman. 94, The Client. 96, A Time to Kill, The Chamber. 97, The Rainmaker. 98, The Gingerbread Man. 2003, Runaway Jury. 2004, Mickey. They finally do Christmas with the Cranks, based on the John Grisham novel.
That's John Grisham
in 2004, and they haven't made a John Grisham movie since 21 years.
Wow.
They did, 12 in the space of 11 years? Insane. Now, what they have done is a little bit of TV stuff, including coming soon a new TV adaptation of The Rainmaker, in which friend and past and future guest of the show Christina Appleby will appear. Opposite John Slattery,
yes,
Dan
of course.
Fogler, and other friends of the show who have popped up in the show. So we've got more Grisham coming to the small screen soon, because realistically, they just don't make movies like this. They make TV like this now. Runaway Jury is now a TV show, which is such a shame.
Well, we did get one little dose of it last year with Juror Number 2.
Juror Number 2.
What a refreshing film
Just
to
an
see.
absolute diamond in the rough that Clint Eastwood is the only person still able to push a project like this into the theatrical market.
And God, it took an effort.
It really did. It's actually a very clear comparative film to Runaway Jury in terms of like pretty similar premise. Like not really in terms of the crime that's committed or whatever, but like it's a pretty similar like how to make a good movie about a jury. Like these are obviously both operating in the shadow of the great jury movie 12 Angry Men. And obviously neither is coming close to that in terms of its kind of incredible all-encompassing portrayal of the jury process, but they're not even trying really. But I do think Juror Number 2 is a nice, unique 2020s version of this type of movie that we're so lucky to have, even though it's made in a very calm and conservative style compared to this, which is the most frantic early 2000s courtroom garbage. I say that with love. Imaginable.
It's very, very close to becoming a new metal thing.
Absolutely.
Its editing is kind of consistent with the time of having a new metal soundtrack.
Yes.
Swordfish type.
Swordfish, very much.
Mission Impossible
But you could
2,
absolutely be dropping Linkin Park into this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got like, real early 2000s, like basically Hollywood just discovered the power of screens and gadgets and little handheld gadgets that characters could carry around. And they seem to think the only way to represent the feeling of holding a gadget is to edit the film at 1 million frames a second with all these crazy swipes and the music just going
and like,
nuts.
When somebody's on a computer, the camera has to like orbit them.
Yes, they're filming
because it shows
characters using technology as if they're like holding a gun
or using a punching bag or something.
They've like swapped the computer out for a gun when in fact in modern films now, I mean, even in Severance, there's so much computer use. And they've managed to film people sitting at desktop computers.
Because computers aren't exciting to people anymore.
But if
computers have become they're a burden in your life where it's like a rock you have to do for work. Yeah, it's a rock you drag
But I do think that like Severance has figured out a way, and Severance exists in this liminal kind of time and space where it's not quite the 2020s or whatever. But like the way they film people sitting at computers in Severance is always very fresh and interesting without doing this insane like camera movement swinging around the back of their head, which is what movies like this and Swordfish do. But I do think this was far better than Swordfish, probably because it's not entirely dependent on gadgets to be interesting. It has this legal courtroom thing at its
I couldn't
center.
tell you if Swordfish has a plot.
Swordfish is just like
Hugh Jackman has to hack something?
terrorist stuff. This has at least got like it has kind of a moral argument at the center of it, and it has like 3 or 4 characters with competing goals.
Yeah.
So it's very functional as a screenplay, I guess, because it's based on a Grisham novel. It is the work of a director I had never heard of, whose name is hold on here, folks. Gary Fleeter. This man has not made a film since the Jason Statham, James Franco movie Homefront in 2013. Other films he made include Kiss the Girls and Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. No interest.
The real prize here is the cinematographer who
is one of the greatest living cinematographers, Robert Elswit, who of course won the Academy Award for shooting There Will Be Blood. He works with both of the Gilroys as well as his work with Paul Thomas Anderson, and of course he shot Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Sorry, not Ghost Protocol. He shot Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and he did shoot Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation. And he shot King of Staten Island and stuff as well. But he's incredible. He also shot The Night of pilot, and he worked on Ripley this year. Incredible stuff. I don't think this movie has incredible cinematography, but it's certainly functional. You're like, okay, this is certainly the work of someone better than average.
I agree. Like these things can get incredibly stale and look like TV if you're not being careful. Like I understand that a lot of the movement is probably more a directorial choice and and that, but it makes New Orleans look lively, and
makes New Orleans look lively,
and it makes it look like a very distinct city, and it's identifiable as New Orleans. So.
Yeah. The thing is, the director, like, I think if this film was directed by someone really good, this would have like an extra star added on. Like, I think this could be amazing if like Michael Bay had directed it. Like, I don't know if Michael Bay can film inside a building for more than 30 seconds without getting bored, but I just feel like the frantic, chaotic Jerry Bruckheimer-ness of it, even though it's not even a Bruckheimer film, I feel like someone like Bay or one of those guys, even Turtletaub, would make this like a little bit more functional.
I know. I guess my main issue with this is like not plot inconsistency, but lack of depth to the plot.
Okay.
To try and conclude what's going on. Like, I understand it sets up this whole moral argument and stuff, and then you have...
Well, we should explain this.
Yeah, we should explain the plot. I'll do it.
Yeah.
So the film opens with a mass shooting in a stockbroker's office, in a financial office, where a masked man comes in, shoots a couple of people, kills himself.
A disgruntled shareholder.
Yeah, exactly. And immediately it doesn't linger on this at all. It immediately cuts to... This is going to court, but obviously the shooter is dead, so they're not charging him. They're charging the gun company, the manufacturer, with I guess negligence because their products were used to.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what
exactly. They sold a gun to a crazy person, and this is a change from the book in which it was a tobacco company.
Oh, okay.
But then the Insider came out,
yeah,
and they decided to change it because it would be too similar to the Insider,
yeah,
which is really interesting because the gun company thing creates far more of it's a much more higher stakes feeling argument. I feel like a tobacco company, you're like, tobacco company.
Funny running around hacking stuff just for cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's a bit. But anyway, John Cusack is called to be on the jury. Mm-hmm. He's selected for the jury despite his apparent efforts to get out of jury duty because he has a Madden football video game competition.
Yes.
We then learn that John Cusack wanted to be on the jury so he could swing it.
Yeah.
Or potentially blackmail either side of the legal team into paying him to swing it.
Yeah. And on one side, you've got Dustin Hoffman, who is a nice, ethical lawyer who is defending the widow of the guy killed in the shooting.
He's with the plaintiff, and then the defendant is the gun company, and they hire Gene Hackman, Mr. Fitch, to come in and select the jury that he do kind of some like psychological analysis, whatever.
Yeah.
He picks the ideal jury that he knows will swing in favor of the gun company.
Yeah.
And when that goes bad, he's also willing to pull out some dirty tricks of paying people off, blackmailing people, and
breaking into houses, setting fire to things.
Yeah, finding out about people's affairs and abortions and all this kind of thing. So he gets leverage on all the jurors to try and blackmail them.
Yeah. And basically
John Cusack and Rachel Weisz are working together, and they send a phone call to each of the legal teams and say, give us $10 million and we will do what you want. The twist at the end of this film is that one of Gene Hackman's goons is going around trying to find dirt on John Cusack, I guess, and finds out that John Cusack, when he was a child, was involved in a school shooting as a victim where his sister was murdered, and the town he lived in took the gun company at the time to court, lost. The town went bankrupt. Town went to hell, declined, whatever. So turns out he has a motive to go against the gun companies, which I guess...
And his motivation has never been money. It's always been to bring down the gun company.
So the $10 million to whoever... So the legal team that wants to pay the $10 million was always a bit of a diversion.
Yes.
And basically at the end, they get the money from Gene Hackman.
Yes.
To sway the trial, and he doesn't.
Yes.
But then
they destroy Gene Hackman's
He
career.
has Gene Hackman on the loop for like illegal wire fraud or illegal tampering.
Yes.
So he can't do anything, and I guess the money goes to the town of the original school shooting.
But Dustin Hoffman also gets his big heroic moment where he is asked to give over the $10 million.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I won't do it. I believe in the rule of law, and I won't.
Even though he does consider it for a while. He goes to his law firm and asks the partners, "Can I have $10 million to win this case?"
And they're like, "No, fuck off." And then he's like, "You know what? This is a bad idea." And he comes out of the film looking pure and wonderful and good, even though he kind of only wins the trial because Cusack decides he should.
Yeah.
Cusack ultimately does a much better job of swinging this thing than the actual lawyer that's been hired by the plaintiff.
There's one or two kind of clunky scenes where Hoffman and Hackman meet in the bathroom and they're talking about, I'm doing what's morally right.
I mean, clunky, yes, but also
Gene
that's the
Hackman's
only
like, yeah.
that's the only time that Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman ever act across each other in
Yeah.
their entire careers, and they were in acting school together.
Oh, really?
They were at the Pasadena Playhouse, and they were classmates, and they were both voted least likely to succeed.
That's very funny.
So I do think on a boy party level, the director there just wants the two of them in a room together shouting. And I think as that kind of setup goes, it could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot worse. I think a little bit of what happens there is that everything beforehand is so high intense and movement, and then it just kind of grinds to a halt a little bit when they're just having like a 4-minute conversation without any movement.
Yeah, we're making this sound so long and complicated and boring, but it's actually so hectic, and because there's so many characters trying to achieve different things, the film is cutting between all of them constantly.
There are some incredible edits where they just need to cut a few seconds where like a camera will be zooming in on a random character's face.
Well, there's a bit where a woman is sitting in a cafe and a guy comes up to her and is like, "We're fucking blackmailing you."
Yeah.
And then it just cuts forward 2 seconds and he goes, "We'll be in touch." And then it cuts forward again and he's gone and she's just looking scared. Like it's literally going cut.
It's like trailer editing. Like
Yeah, which I love. Shout out to editor William Steenkamp, the editor of Tootsie. He did a great job. Anyway.
Now, as I said before, the part that where this film falls down and where it's missing a bit is we finally get to the jury deliberations, and John Cusack has made up his mind at this point that he's going to sway it towards the plaintiff, the widow of the man who was shot, and then he has this argument with Cliff Curtis where he gets Cliff Curtis to be like, "Fuck her, I don't want her to get money because I was in the army and I didn't get money and my friends died." And then he looks around the room and then that seemingly convinces everyone to vote against the gun company.
Yes, and we never see how he
No,
sends it back,
it kind of ignores all the actual like jury deliberation stuff that kind of
which is
makes up the bulk of what 12 Angry Men is.
And a lot of juror number two as well, yeah. So it's kind of trying to be the anti-12 Angry Men in that it's not interested in that. But that stuff is interesting. That stuff's always interesting.
Yeah, like the hashing out of the moral issue is done kind of between Hackman and Hoffman more than the actual jury.
And I think that's just a decision.
And then it just goes
the allocation of screen time. Yeah,
and then the judge just announces the verdict, and that's it.
Yeah, and you really have no idea what he's going to say until he says it. Like,
no.
Yep. Well, I had a good time, regardless.
Same,
because I got to see all these boys in a movie together, and the music reminded me of National Treasure, and it was a lot of fun.
I agree. There's some good clips of Hackman throwing things, and
shouting,
and kicking bins.
Yeah, he looks great in this. This is his second. This is his second last film ever. He's probably like 75 in this.
70,
he's
32.
95 now. The movie is 22 years old, so he's
73.
Yeah.
He looks great
Good for
73.
So this is his second last film. His final film comes out 1 year later. It is the Ray Romano comedy Welcome to Mooseport, which I have seen, which is a movie where he plays the former president who moves to a small town. And the small town is like, the former president is living here. He should run for mayor. And then he runs for mayor against Ray Romano. It's shite. This, of course, is 2 years after his great final performance that should have been his final film in Wes Anderson's The Royal Tenenbaums, in which he is incredible. He made 5 movies in 2001. That's a lot of work for a guy in his 70s. But you know what? He was saving up to retire, literally. He was like working loads and loads and loads, and then he just stopped working and he never came back. And I have huge admiration for that kind of clean cut off point. Like him and Sean Connery and Jack Nicholson, kind of the last guys who ever just like stopped working and left it that way. Obviously Nicholson, the jury's still out, but I don't think Nicholson's coming back. Anyway, Royal Tenenbaums, he's amazing in it, of course, as the titular Royal Tenenbaum, the grandfather of the wacky family. We've done a podcast about that movie before. We will link it in the show notes, even though the audio quality is shite. He's a 2-time Oscar winner for his performances in The French Connection and Unforgiven. I watched The French Connection for the first time last week. Great William Friedkin movie, which did extraordinarily well. Won Best Picture and Best Actor and everything at the Oscars for what is essentially a kind of a small-scale Mission Impossible movie. Like it is a Parisian sort of drug detective thriller with
tiny cars weaving through traffic.
Cars weaving through traffic, foot chases, following guys down into the metro. It's really, really a lot of fun. But it is literally just like a kind of a, wouldn't even call it like an espionage thriller. It's just kind of like a detective thriller, and it won Best Picture and Best Actor. It's not his greatest performance, in my opinion. I think he's really great in Tenenbaums. I think he's amazing in The Conversation, which was another Oscar success 10 years prior, where he of course plays this guy who's like a sort of an audio
analyst for. Does he work with the CIA in that? Or
no, he's like a freelance. I think he's like, yeah, maybe he's
kind
like,
of a PI.
Yeah, and he's basically like recording people's conversations out in public and then listening back to like, you know, dig out dirt on them. And he becomes obsessed with this one tape and this one conversation. He's listening to it over and over and over again, and just basically starts to like tear his house apart. And then the movie ends with just him like sitting in this kind of wreckage of his apartment playing the saxophone.
Oh, it's great.
Incredible film. Coppola.
It's also because it's in the 70s. All the listening equipment is giant satellite dishes and big
like,
headphones,
big reels of tape, and it's amazing.
It's so good.
And of course, John Cazale's in that with him. He was first nominated for an Oscar in 1967 for a supporting performance in Bonnie and Clyde, which honestly I haven't seen Bonnie and Clyde, and I didn't really realize he was in it or that he got an Oscar nomination for it. So I really need to watch that.
Is he Clyde?
Warren Beatty is Clyde. He's a supporting
Yeah,
role.
I was like, surely that's not his category fraud there.
His second Oscar nomination in 1970 for a movie called I Never Sang for My Father, which is a Gilbert Cates movie. I started watching it the other day. It seemed really interesting. I'm going to watch it in the next couple of weeks. He's been in that with Melvin Douglas. He wins for French Connection. He's nominated again in 1988 for Mississippi Burning, which is a kind of a Klan... Ku Klux Klan like investigation movie with him and Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
And then he wins his second Oscar in 1992, 21 years since his first, with Unforgiven. This is an Adrian Brody length gap there.
I was about to say,
in which he stars obviously with Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris. A real boy party movie that we had considered doing for this episode, but we decided to do Runaway Jury instead. Lucky you guys. I haven't seen that, but he obviously plays some kind of cranky sheriff type character in that. So he's fun. He wins his Oscars for very different roles in very different eras of his life, but he kind of also like, I feel like his look changed a lot, where he was like mustache, skinny, tall, sexy guy in the 70s of a certain type, and not traditionally handsome maybe, but he had like 70s mustache face. And then by the time it got to the 90s and to 2000s, he kind of looks like a Republican. He's developed like a scowl and kind of a mean face, where he is the perfect casting for like generals, politicians, and
gun
lobby guys.
Yeah.
Like he's really good at playing just like right-wing mean bastards, and that's basically what he does in everything. And I guess the work that takes the most advantage of that in an interesting way is Wes Anderson being like, yes, horrible asshole, but what if the movie's about him trying to redeem himself, which is fantastic.
What if we make him a horrible asshole to children?
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
I'll do everyone's favorite part of the podcast. Can you guess the box office total of these three stars, Cusack, Hoffman, and Hackman? Who do you think is out in the lead?
Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman's total box office, $6.2 billion.
Oh, wow, that's higher than I thought.
Cusack's total, $2.8 billion.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman's, $3.2 billion. Pretty good for Gene Hackman.
Hackman is
pretty good.
bumped
Now,
Cusack. Okay.
You need to keep in mind that Gene Hackman plays Lex Luthor in the 1978 film Superman, which, adjusted for inflation, would have grossed about $1.5 billion. That is a 300 million at the time. But that is, I mean, one of the most iconic blockbusters of the 20th century. Yeah. He, I think, is first billed or second billed in that. Like, it's a funny one where both him and Brando are billed above Christopher Reeve, who played Superman, which is a really fun one. Yeah. That film was pretty good, I guess. I mean, it's kind of a bona fide capital C classic. It's got a good score. He is a lot of fun in it as Lex Luthor, a role that has, of course, since been played by cool people like Kevin Spacey, Jesse Eisenberg, and now Nicholas Hoult from Juror Number 2 himself. I have, I suppose, the kind of the contrarian take that Jesse Eisenberg is the best Lex Luthor, and no one's going to be happy that I said that. But sorry, he plays Lex Luthor like he's me. And I like that. But some of these movies where Hackman was co-starring in the 90s with younger guys did incredibly well. I mean, The Firm, $270 million, Enemy of the State, $250, The Birdcage, $180. I mean, The Birdcage is a comedy about the gay community and like is very, very left field for the 90s for Hollywood, and made $180 million. That's incredible. And that's like Robin Williams and Gene Hackman's star power. Like, and then he's in Ants. That's kind of the one animated thing sneaking in here. Obviously, like the Ants also has like Woody Allen in it, like an insane voice cast. Of his, like his 70s movies are way down the list here because the box office for those just doesn't compare. Like Bonnie and Clyde, 50 million, and Bonnie and Clyde would be considered like an enormous hit for the 70s. But anyway, that's a healthy box office total for someone who hasn't worked since the start of the 21st century.
Yeah, for sure.
Dustin Hoffman's $6.2 billion gross comes largely from the fact that he is in 4 Kung Fu Panda movies.
Oh,
as
is
Master
that where it's
Shifu.
coming?
You've got about $2.5 billion coming from those here.
Then you got the Dirty Fockers.
Then you've got the Dirty Fockers. Meet the Fockers, 500. Every time we bring it up, you have to laugh. $516 million for Meet the Fockers. It's just extraordinary. In which his role is listed here as Mr. Focker.
He is the titular Focker.
What is his character's name? He has like a funny name, doesn't he? Because the son is obviously Gaylord Focker. I feel like the parents have like funny names. Oh, he plays Bernie Focker. Roz and Bernie. Oh yeah. He's I'm seeing if any of the actual Dustin Hoffman vehicles are contributing here. Rain Man, obviously, with himself and Cruise, $412 million. That's where he wins the second Oscar for that. Tootsie, $177 million in 1982 for a drag comedy. Like these guys were really like introducing American audiences to dynamic and new concepts of gender and sexuality, and they were making a lot of money.
Where did it all go wrong?
I know, right? People were opening their hearts to Tootsie, a totally PC film that definitely has aged well.
I'm sure.
Co-starring the wonderful Jessica Lange, who I saw in person twice last week. I'm looking here at Hoffman's in. He's in Dick Tracy, apparently, as Mumbles, of course. Kramer versus Kramer, 1979, makes $106 million. Wow. I watched this last week. So his 2 Oscars are Kramer versus Kramer and Rain Man. Rain Man, one of the worst Oscar wins. Just awful. He does the Simple Jack in that.
Yeah.
That's a really unfortunate film in which he plays a autistic man who is being kind of looked after by, I don't know, is it his nephew or some shit, Tom Cruise, and he's really good at maths and statistics and stuff, and that gets him through life, but he's doing a lot of stammering and stuttering, and it's a really frustrating thing to watch.
But a guaranteed Oscar, babe.
Guaranteed Oscar. He is kind
They
of
had A Beautiful Mind was similar, wasn't it?
I think so. I've never seen A Beautiful Mind, but and then obviously Sean Penn in I Am Sam doesn't win the Oscar, but it's similar enough. But that's his second Oscar. But his first Oscar is for Kramer versus Kramer, which I had never seen, and I always assumed was like a bit of a kind of a wonky, people screaming at each other movie with him and Meryl Streep, because it's the premise of that movie is just, what if a couple got divorced? And I was like, ooh, I've never seen a couple get divorced before.
Sounds very Marriage Story.
It's very, very similar to Marriage Story. But then the ways it's not similar to Marriage Story are so interesting. I expected it to be like the exact same premise as Marriage Story. The movie basically starts with Meryl Streep. They have a young son, same as Marriage Story. Meryl Streep gets up and says, I'm not happy in this marriage, I'm leaving, and have fun raising our child. And then the next hour of the movie is basically just him trying to mind his son and like not knowing how, and finding it really difficult to spend time with him, and finding it really difficult to balance being a single parent with being in work. And it's like a movie that's very obviously interested in the male perspective on divorce and on a marriage breaking down. And like, you wouldn't get away with that now, in the sense that why would anyone want to watch a movie that is so interested in the man's version of events and not in the woman's version of events? Because Marriage Story is a course correction on that.
Well, is that not just what After Sun is?
But After Sun's not a divorce movie.
Sorry, is that a death movie?
Mm-hmm.
Is that is his wife?
The wife is still alive and he talks to her on the phone. I just think After Sun isn't about the relationship or the marriage. After Sun's just about like the father's
Hanging out
relationship
with
with the daughter.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
But this movie is about him trying to reckon with why the wife is left. But Meryl Streep...
But I feel like at the time you were like, oh, people love After Sun because it gives it finally goes into the man's perspective of like...
Interesting. I don't remember saying that. That's an interesting take.
I think you
from
did.
me
I think
3
you
years
were
ago.
you were like it's a good insight into men's mental health and that kind of...
I would have said that in a facetious
Yes,
way.
I'm aware you would have. But
Sure.
But
I
you
get what
were
you're saying.
still like, that did well commercially.
Of course.
Because people are fond of that idea and
I
that
agree,
thematically,
yes.
which is
I
why I think
wonder-
maybe Kramer would have a bit of traction if it came out
Absolutely.
today.
I wonder if Kramer versus Kramer did damage to men's self-pity in these situations of making the film makes a very solid argument that like now the film is sympathetic to Meryl Streep, who shows up again about an hour in and is like, I am back and I would like custody of our son, please, even though I've been gone for a while. And you're kind of watching it like, why should she get custody? She hasn't been around. And I'm like, no, she's the mother, you know. That film kind of leads you down a route of wanting to dislike the mother. But Meryl Streep obviously is pulling her towards sympathetic as much as she can. But I wonder, did that film kind of create an era of men feeling like they were hard done by in these custody battles? Whereas I feel like Marriage Story presents a very good two-sided version of events. Yeah. And that is a film made by a man who just went through this process. And we'll talk about it on a very soon episode, so let's not spend any more time on it. But it's much more well balanced than Kramer versus Kramer. But Hoffman is great in Kramer versus Kramer. He's really good in it, despite any issues I might have had with the film's perspective. He's playing this kind of like very, very worn out working professional who is trying to bond with his kid and discipline him, and he's really good at that. He's really good at playing these slightly disheveled guys with kind of a whiny voice that you're like, yeah, I care what you're up to. I mean, I think he's one of the greatest actors alive. And it's not trendy to say that anymore because, unfortunately, he doesn't seem to be a very nice guy. There were accusations of sexual abuse made against him in 2017, sexual misconduct, should I say. He was then confronted about this in public by John Oliver at a Q&A in front of Robert De Niro, who was sitting beside him, and he did a terrible job defending himself. And he basically didn't make another mainstream film again, except for Kung Fu Pandas and Megalopolis, in which he shows up kind of reunited with his buddy Francis Ford Coppola, who I'm now realizing, had they worked together before? I'm sure they have. I'm just blanking. And he is in that movie for like 5 minutes. He just plays like a kind of a little snivelly, whispery guy who's hanging out with Giancarlo Esposito's character. But he has done a very bad job of rescuing his career from those accusations. I feel like given that they were accusations of things that had happened many years previously, there probably was an opportunity for him to just kind of like put the blinkers up and people would have forgotten about it, like Morgan Freeman in a similar situation. But he did a really bad job and his fucking publicists did a bad job and he just stopped getting work. And he's almost 90. Wow. And he's basically probably never going to be in a studio film again that isn't animated. And you wonder, did it have to be that way? As in, he probably deserves it, but he probably could have gotten away with it if he had a slightly better PR team. I like how here it says that the people who came to his defense when he was accused included Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and Liam Neeson. With all respect to Liam Neeson, those are not the people you want defending you. Like, those are people who often say crazy and terrible things. But I mean, the top tier of Dustin Hoffman performances are like among the greatest of all time. The Graduate obviously is just incredible. He's kind of like reinventing the entire concept of the Hollywood leading man in that, I feel like, in some ways. He's of course great in Midnight Cowboy, in which he basically invents the entire I'm walking here like New Yorker thing. That's him. Marathon Man's fantastic. Great in the Meyerowitz Stories.
Is he from New York?
I assume so. It'd
be funny if I'm walking here was invented by a non-New Yorker.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I don't know if he is. Hard to say. Great in the Meyerowitz Stories, in which he plays Adam Sandler and Ben Stiller's father. You can hear us talk about him more on a podcast we've done about that.
Kind of his Gene Hackman, Royal Tenenbaums moment
exactly.
there.
And I saw him in a film recently I really liked him in called Moonlight Mile with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he plays like his kind of stepdad, and he's pretty good in that. Of course, he's in Ishtar, All the President's Men, loads and loads of great films. So Dustin Hoffman is great. John Cusack, moving on to our third guy, is
to complete our trio of equal
exactly. John Cusack's total box office $2.8 billion. His biggest movie is of course 2012, which is accounting for about a third of that money, and then there's a lot of just mid-level movies there. I've always really liked John Cusack, but I can't really explain why I like him. I don't think he's amazing, but he sort of exists in this, he's on a spectrum of Edward Norton to Nicolas Cage, and he kind of bounces between the two in terms of the roles he takes.
He does, but also kind of doesn't have the extremes of either of them.
Exactly. He's right down the middle to his detriment.
Yeah.
He's like not able to do the full-bodied insanity of Cage, no matter how hard he tries, and he can't do the kind of wiry emotional depths of Norton. And he kind of exists in Norton's shadow, where like he's a little bit older, I think, but he's constantly playing roles that you're like, oh, Edward Norton would be better at this.
He doesn't have the intensity or kind of nastiness in his face.
No.
He's probably too nice.
He's too nice. But then when he plays the really nice characters, the real like, oh, I'm such an innocent little
Grace
man.
is Gone.
Yeah.
Like,
so I watched fucking Grace is Gone the other day, which is a nightmare. And the only person I can compare him to in Grace is Gone is Steve Carell when he does his sad sack bullshit, which everybody knows how much I despise in Welcome to Marwen and in Beautiful Boy and in Last Flag Flying. When Steve Carell is like, my wife is dead or my kid is dead and I'm sad and I have glasses and I'm stumbling over my feet, and you're like, oh my God, will you grow up? This is what Cusack does in Grace is Gone, where his wife has been killed in action in Iraq, and the movie is him having to mind his daughters, and he is like, oh, and it's just like, God, fucking get a grip.
Like
I can't stand John Cusack playing this. Like,
it's like John
dweeb.
Cusack. If John Cusack just did his normal thing, it would be more effective because that's more of a real person.
Instead of wearing a wig and glasses.
He doesn't need to turn on the kind of the pity machine. Yeah,
and then
he's probably got it. Not in a bad way, but he's probably got it in him a little bit naturally.
Yeah, no, I mean the best run of his career is when he is actually just allowed to be like a likable leading man of a kind of a normal ilk, which is I kind of think where this film falls. His kind of late 90s, early 2000s run, he's in. Like his big breakout is obviously 1989 in Say Anything, which he's so good in, and this is like the last age where you could buy him as like sexy, where he's like early 20s and he's super charming, and in that he's just playing like the fucking handsome boyfriend who's wooing the Lloyd Dobler, and of course famous scene with the holding the boombox over his head outside her window. Like, unfortunately, John Cusack's charm and charisma may have peaked a little too early, and he never quite reached that level again. But like his 90s and his early 2000s, he plays a very solid, nice guy, leading man in lots of stuff. He's, of course, in Con Air 1997, where he is a cop partnered with Culmini. Mm-hmm. And he has to basically keep an eye on the Con Air plane while it is flying around. And he's like down on the ground on the phone to people. And you're like, yeah, good. He's a good contrast to Cage and Malkovich and their crazy energy in that. He's in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which we watched recently with Kevin Spacey, where he's like investigating Kevin Spacey's scary mansion of scary things. Yeah. And again, he's a good balance to how over the top Spacey is. So put him in a movie with one of these guys, and I think to a certain extent with Gene Hackman in this, and you're like, yes, his normal is creating a nice equilibrium here. He's in, but then in being John Malkovich, he kind of does the Nicolas Cage thing where he's got long hair and a beard, and he's doing the Charlie Kaufman, and he's fun in that. But again, Malkovich is in that, so he's like he's there's a nice back
like
and forth.
Is there a world in which he kind of followed Mark Ruffalo's career trajectory instead of his own?
Maybe, yeah. Mark Ruffalo is another interesting one, because maybe he could do the Mark Ruffalo Poor Things thing. I mean, he's tried to do that. Like, he's done.
I'm not even talking about the silly stuff. I'm talking about even in like collateral, like kind of.
Yeah, maybe he's just a bit more. He's always more of a dork than Mark Ruffalo.
Maybe that's
Mark Ruffalo is like so much cooler than he is. That's the problem. Yeah. He's never got an Oscar nomination. He, I feel like, is probably entitled to one or two here or there, though I can't tell you what that would be for. I suppose for being John Malkovich. He does, however, have a has a screenplay BAFTA nomination and a few other things, WGA, for writing the script of High Fidelity, which is a film I think is really bad and obnoxious, in which he is addressing the camera directly, talking about how shit his life is and all his ex-girlfriends and all the music he loves, and that is like asshole central. Like, this is like the worst embodiment of Gen X male, like, I don't care, I don't shut up, like, I don't want to hear you.
I don't care about your vinyl collection.
Yeah, that movie's just a guy talking about his vinyl collection, and I think that reflects a little bit poorly on John Cusack, although people do like that film. But I think it makes him out that he thinks this guy's life is interesting. I'm like, okay, maybe John Cusack is just like in his own space over there. But he more recently has just kind of popped up in random bits here and there on TV. He works a lot in China. He just goes where the money is. His last
Is he not a guy who's in line to get an old HBO show for himself?
No, he's already sold out, and he's gone over to Amazon Prime's Utopia remake. Like, he's done bad TV instead of doing good TV. Yeah. His last good performance was more than 10 years ago, where he plays Brian Wilson in Love and Mercy, which is a really good film. He plays the older Brian Wilson. Paul Dano plays the younger Brian Wilson. That film is really good. He's in Maps to the Stars, the Cronenberg movie that same year, although in a small role. He's in a Spike Lee movie in 2015, Chirac. Like, he's still obviously on a casting list with good directors, but I mean, he barely works at all anymore outside of just kind of Chinese blockbusters that he pops up in. He's on Twitter.com every day talking about Palestinians, retweeting Irish politicians' pro-Palestine speeches. Yeah. Claire Daly, he loves her, and I love him for it. He seems like very authentically good political views, of like on like a level with no one else. Like, he has got more outspoken views on Palestine than Mark Ruffalo or Javier Bardem or anyone.
But he's not gone silly Mark Hamill style.
I don't think so. He's like a Liam Cunningham level. Sure. Like, he's really cares about Palestine and seems like a cool, authentic person on that level.
And like, honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that'll probably ever prevent him getting an Oscar nomination. It probably will stop him getting an Oscar nomination. Exactly. Like, if you're Ruffalo, you can get away with being pretty pro-Palestine, or Guy Pearce. But for an American, he's incredibly good on that. So fair play to him. I like him. I don't love him, but I'm interested in him at the moment. I'm kind of like, I want to watch a few more of these vehicles he was in the 90s, because his persona is an odd one to pin down. I did watch another film of his about a year ago called Martian Child, where he has to look after an autistic kid for a week, and you're really just like, Jesus, all the worst parts are coming out here. And like, there's certain roles he does like that where you're like, I'd almost rather see what Matthew Perry would have done with this. I think he'd be able to maybe keep this a little bit more energetic. Hollywood gave him a lot of rope. Like,
and he
getting roles.
Yeah, even as far as being in the star of 2012 in 2009. Like, and that's a huge movie, and he's the lead of that, although he's not on the poster. But again, that's a movie where most of his character's storyline is based on like his daughter is wetting the bed, and he has to deal with that. It's like pathetic father stuff. So those are our 3 stars of Runaway Jury. We are now going to do the... what I want to mention one other thing really quickly, which is that there's an iPod used as a hard drive in this film, which is something I haven't seen done in many years. And also that one of the jurors in this movie is called Lydia Dietz, which is the name of Winona Ryder's character from
Which is bizarre. It's like juror number 2 having a juror named Jason Bourne.
Yeah, like, exactly. It makes no sense. So I have found a Letterboxd user who has this in their top 4 favorite films.
Oh, yeah.
This person is called Brooke Talise. 6 followers, 62 films total logged. Runaway Jury is one of the top 4 films on their profile. All right, the other 3 films. Number 1, we have a film from 2004. And the tagline is, in order to break the code, one man will have to break all the rules.
Is this another hacking movie?
There's maybe some hacking in this movie.
Is it Swordfish?
No. There might be a little bit of hacking. In order to break the code, one man will have to break all the rules.
Is this National Treasure?
Correct. This movie is National
Yes.
Treasure.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have a movie from 2009.
That's so consistent.
Yeah. We have a movie from 2019.
Yeah.
The tagline is "Let the festivities begin." This film has a whopper 3.7 million logs on Letterboxd, 49,000 fans.
3.7 million.
Yeah, and 49,000 fans. I would guess this is probably one of the 25 most logged films on Letterboxd.
Let the Hunger Games of sorts?
No.
No.
Rated R. I've never watched it because I'm scared.
Okay. It's not a Tarantino.
No. But like Halloween costume fodder.
Oh.
Big female star. Young, trendy female star. And an actor who may have sat near us in the cinema in the last year.
Hold on a minute.
In The Lighthouse.
It's not Midsummer?
Midsummer, starring Florence Pugh and Jack Rayner.
Yes.
Who we watched Bringing Out the Dead in proximity to.
Yep. Had a great time.
Yep. Her third favorite film is Runaway Jury. And then number 4, we have a film from 2007. And the tagline is "The greatest adventure history has ever revealed."
Madagascar.
No. 218 fans, 358,000 logs.
The Greatest Adventure. Is it animated?
Nope. greatest adventure history has ever revealed. I have given this film.
Oh, so this is National Treasure Book of Secrets.
This film is National Treasure
National
Book of
Treasure Book of
Secrets.
Secrets.
Fantastic top four.
Okay.
Brilliant top four. All right. This movie's box office.
Did you have this one pre-prepared before the episode?
Of course. I was
Oh,
researching.
okay.
I was researching for ages.
Gotcha, sorry.
I always have it pre-prepared before the episode. I do my research.
Pre-prepared.
Right.
Kind of redundant.
This movie's box office. Let's get it up. So this film was made for a budget of $60 million, which is quite expensive. So I think these boys are being paid a lot. Also, we should say the billing on this film is Cusack, Hackman, Hoffman, Weiss, which I find interesting because this is like a very, very and Dustin Hoffman role. Like Hoffman is not the lead of this. You could make a case for Hackman being the lead.
Yeah.
Hoffman just has less screen time than the other two. I would imagine a 2-time Oscar winner doesn't deserve third billing. I think he should get the and, but he doesn't. He gets third billing. Anyway, this movie was made for $60 million. It opened October 17th, 2003, and it grossed $80.2 million. So not great. Like you'd want to be doubling that number, I'd say. And you know what? That kind of explains why the Grishams dried up soon after this. They weren't pulling in the money anymore. Also, the tagline on the poster is "Trials are too important to be decided by juries," which I do really like.
I do like that.
So, this opens October 17th, 2003.
Yep.
Have you got the opening
I
weekend?
do indeed.
All right, let's hear some clues.
This is not open number one.
Yeah, that figures.
Number one is something you probably haven't watched and don't have much of an interest in.
Is it horror?
Yeah, we're in Halloween territory here.
Is this...
This is October 17th.
Is this something like The Ring remake?
No,
The
but
Grudge?
it's one of the classic titles.
Interesting. So it's not The Ring, it's not The Grudge. Is somebody being exorcised?
No.
Is there...
There's okay.
What?
There's a bit of Jason in this one.
A bit of Gumble. This is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
There was indeed.
Right, okay. I'm bleeping that name out for legal reasons.
He might come in.
He might listen to it. All right.
The man has 127 convictions.
He's gonna get you.
I think he has enough people on the list to get.
It's before he gets to the Boy Party podcast, right?
Here's another film I don't think you particularly care for that's about being gruesome and...
Is it another horror?
Not horror.
It's Halloween, like, yeah.
It's not horror, but it's violence.
It's violence.
Yeah, it's a violent film.
It's not Kill Bill Volume 1.
It is Kill Bill Volume 1.
Very good. Wonderful. Okay, what's next?
Next up is our titular.
Oh, yeah. Runaway Jury.
Which made $11 million?
Sure. Okay.
First weekend? Yeah. Now, number 4 is a funny one, giving the cast of this.
Oh, interesting.
It's another Cusack vehicle.
Oh, another Cusack vehicle. 2003. Yeah. Right. America's Sweethearts.
No. Maybe not a Cusack vehicle.
What's the genre?
What is the genre?
You don't know. All right.
I don't know how to describe the genre.
What's another Cusack?
It involves...
Is it being John Malkovich?
It involves children.
It involves not
children and music.
Children and music and John Cusack. I'm blanking on what this could be.
It's School of Rock with Joan Cusack.
Oh, so John Cusack's not in it.
No.
Oh, Cusack vehicle. Very good. Sorry, we haven't mentioned Joan Cusack once.
No.
I forgot that that's part of the John Cusack experience.
Yes.
That Joan Cusack exists and is kind of a better actor than him. Anyway.
Possibly.
She plays his sister in Say Anything. And it's delightful.
Yeah.
Say Anything's great. Anyway. Keep going.
This is one I know the name of, but I'm going to have to look it up because I don't know anything about it. It's like...
Wonderful.
Spooky Water.
The Lady in the Water. No, it's 06. Dark Water.
No.
Deep Water.
No.
Black Water.
No.
Spooky Water.
It's a bit of a boy party, I guess.
Who are the boys?
In reverse order, we got Lawrence Fishburne,
Okay.
Kevin Bacon,
Right.
Tim Robbins, Sean Penn,
Mystic River.
Mystic River.
Sure.
Spooky Water.
Movie, yeah. Clint Eastwood movie.
Bit of Marcia Gay Harden in there.
Child murder film. We love it.
We love that.
Tim Robbins' Academy Award win for supporting actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It does feel like Tim Robbins having an Oscar and John Cusack not having a single nomination is a little bit of an imbalance there. They're at the same level for me.
Sure. I guess a lot of Tim Robbins is probably a Shawshank.
It's a Shawshank apology, and also the fact that he's a good director helps, I think. If Cusack was a good director, people would give him more leeway.
Now, here we go. We got a film with a punctuation in the title, an exclamation mark.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Saved?
Nope.
That was a good guess. Okay.
This is for children, I believe,
Oh, interesting.
and directed by John Hoffman.
No,
I don't know who that is.
With exclamation
Dustin
point.
Hoffman. This is the only film this guy has ever directed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's?
It's 87 minutes and involves dogs.
It involves dogs and has an exclamation point.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh.
The two people leads are Molly Shannon and Liam Aiken.
Liam Aiken from A Series of Unfortunate Events, starring Dustin Hoffman.
Matthew Broderick does a voice of a dog.
Matthew Broderick does the voice of a dog. It's not Cats and Dogs.
No.
What could this be? A dog movie from 2003? I don't know.
This is Good Boy.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Good Boy! Exclamation.
That's where Liam Aiken came from. Interesting. All right.
Rover is about to take over.
That's a good tagline. I do like Rover.
An
taking
intergalactic dog pilot.
What?
From Sirius.
From Syria.
Sirius.
Okay.
Bracket. The dog star.
Oh, that's an important
Visits
clarification.
Earth to verify the rumors that dogs have failed to take over the planet.
We have been spreading those rumors, unfortunately. Our podcast has been part of the problem.
Yeah.
We aim to do better. We strive to do better. I will mention quickly, folks, if we do another Dustin Hoffman movie ever, it's probably going to be my beloved Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the single film that makes me cry the most in the entire world. With him and Natalie Portman. It's a wonderful film. Probably the last like big studio movie he was ever first building. Anyway, one more.
Okay, one more. This is we got some fun people in this.
Okay, I do like movies with fun people.
Yeah, way down the list we got a sneaky Billy Bob Thornton, Richard Jenkins appearance.
Oh, class, the boys.
Yeah, like way down. I'm not sure if you could make a film with this title anymore. I feel like it wouldn't.
Okay,
it's just it's
right.
I don't think people would latch onto it.
Okay, you don't think it's not
these films are called Back in Action or whatever.
Sure.
Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz.
Yes. Well, Looney Tunes Back in Action came out about a month after this. So.
Yeah. They can't keep their hands off each other's assets.
Oh, interesting.
I think that'll probably give
each
away.
other's assets.
Yeah, that's just.
I don't know. So it's financy money movie.
Yeah. What's Sexy Finance from 2003?
It's not In Good Company.
No.
Sexy.
The first syllable was correct there.
In. What? The first syllable?
Yeah.
What do you mean the first syllable?
In something.
Insider trading.
No.
I don't know what this is.
Do you want me to tell you? It's a Joel Coen.
Oh, Intolerable Cruelty.
Intolerable Cruelty.
Oh, I love this movie. Oh, that is the silly man. Please, sir, can you identify the silly man? That's him. That's the silly man. Oh, that's a wonderful
Clooney
film.
does a total Cary Grant riff for 100 minutes, and it's a delight. Really, really funny. Wish there was more Jeffrey Rush. That was your review of this.
That's a brilliant film. Intolerable Cruelty is so good. It's the Coens doing 1940s Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn comedy.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
With Catherine Zeta-Jones instead.
Yeah, it would be better if she wasn't in it, but sure. What are you going to do? Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Boy Party. We hope you've enjoyed running away with jury.
Don't run away if you're on a jury.
Do your jury duty, folks. It's your civil duty.
Civil
I
privilege.
was trying to think of another word for duty, and I couldn't. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another party for the boys and the girls, and hopefully with a woman star, because we have done, unfortunately, by accident, a 5-week boy-only streak for the first time, which is very unfortunate.
Rachel Weisz is in this.
If you want to hear more of me nattering away, you can check out the episode of the No Encore podcast I appeared on last week, discussing the top 5 Oscar Best Original Song winning songs with Dave and Adam. You can Google the No Encore podcast. It's a lot of fun. We had a great time. You visit boypartypod.com for more episodes of this show. Follow the show on boypartypod on Instagram and Blue Sky. And visit boypartypod.com. I just said that. Gene Hackman, it's the rocks. The rocks are messing with my head. No. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.